Racism. Everyone's tired of hearing about it, and people of color are tired of living it. When people hear others talking about racism, they whip out the definition that pops up on Google first from Wikipedia, which is the belief that all members of each race possess characteristics or abilities specific to that race, especially so as to distinguish it as inferior or superior to any other race or races. Usually used to justify racism towards white people, which is called reverse racism. This is called reverse racism because being racist towards a white person is essentially not real and reversed from the actual definition. You can even take the Wikipedia definition if you want to prove that. The definition says inferior or superior to another race or races. White people will always be the superior race over anyone, and in history have used racism as a way to put other races down and gain a sense of superiority. Even today, white people are seen as higher and better than people of color. Any type of prejudice that a person has towards a white person does not oppress them in our society. There's countless examples of discrimination and racism against people of color in our country. Every day you see a person of color and you make assumptions. It's not on purpose, it's just what we do. Most people assume that black people are ghetto, and when they end up being intelligent, society says that they act white. Like a black person being intelligent is just surprising to them. Researchers did a study on a bias that people have towards specifically black people, where they feel that black people have no pain. They tested the racial empathy gap, which shows that most black people are unable to empathize with pain in people of different races, especially black. They showed a group of white people a video of a white person getting their skin poked and prodded, and their hands got very sweaty, which showed that they essentially felt the pain and could empathize with the white person. Now, when the video shown was a black person getting poked and prodded the exact same way, there was barely any reaction. Which is why a black person's survival rate in scary movies are usually hovers around 10%. We aren't looked at as humans, we are looked at as disposable and scary. From the moment we are born, we are targets. My mother started coaching me around 12 years old about how to act around cops, how to act around white people, and how to just be accepted in society alone. Police killed more black people last year than the number of people who died in 9/11. 9/11 is a respected day in history that we take time to memorialize, but when it comes to things like slavery, people say, that was so long ago, get over it. When is slavery memorialized? When do we take a day to respect those innocent children and young men who died for having a certain amount of melanin in their skin? Oh wait, we can't. Our lives aren't important enough. If I want to be accepted, I just need to be ignorant. After all, ignorance is bliss. On the night of the Trayvon Martin verdict, when George Zimmerman was announced not guilty, my mother cried in the car because she felt as though at any minute that could be any of us, any of her beloved children, dead with no justice whatsoever. And so, for the week on, she was too scared to let us even leave the home. Last year, 1,100 black people were killed by cops. Over 3,000 black people this year alone have been killed by police officers, the majority of which have not been investigated or televised. We only see a very small number of the unjust that is being done to my people. My family fears my safety every day because I am a teen, like all of us, who likes to go out and have fun with my friends, but they fear as though I could get in trouble just for being me. Throughout history, people of color have been targeted as a threat just because of the pigmentation in their skin. Cases involving lynching and the known targeting of black people have gone on for hundreds of years and has become a norm and thought of as something to get over. Hard to move on and ignore reoccurring issues happening today. Raymond Brisbois, 34, father of 4, killed by police on December 2nd, 2014. Shot to death when a police officer mistook his bottle of pills for a gun. Tamir Rice, 12 years old, on November 22nd, 2014, shot and killed by an officer who mistook his BB gun for an actual gun seconds after spotting him in a park. Walter Scott, 50, on April 4th, 2015, pulled over for a non-functioning taillight. As the officer went back to his patrol car, Walter fled the scene and the officer shot him 8 times in the back. 8 times. The officer goes to the radio and says that Walter reached for his taser, then plants the taser on Walter's dead body. all of which was caught on video. Eric Harris, 44, on April 2nd, 2015, was killed by a cop and a volunteer cop who was allowed to have a gun. Harris was running away and tackled to the ground by a cop. Another officer comes up and presses his knee into Harris's head, while a volunteer cop shoots Harris in the back. Harris proceeds to scream that he was shot and he can't breathe, and the officer says, "F your breath." Harris dies shortly after. This is all caught on video, but if it wasn't for the video footage, it'd just be another case that no one talked about or fought for. The difference between black people and white people being killed by police aren't completely the same for different reasons. Police brutality is an issue in itself, but you have to look at the reason these people are killed. Black people are targeted and stereotyped, suspected as guilty before there's even a crime. There are white people like James Holmes who committed mass murder and are armed with actual high artillery weapons who are taken into custody without so much as a scratch on them. Cases like these happen for hundreds of years, and you cannot tell a person of color that they care too much or they take these things too seriously when it's happening to people all around me every single day. I'm allowed to talk about racism. I'm allowed to be angry about these things because I am the one who fears for their life every time a cop passes by. I am the one who has witnessed hundreds of times black people being persecuted for just being the color that they are born with. I have to fear for my sisters going through the discrimination that I went through. Fear that my free-spirited, wandering 11-year-old sister may not grow up to fully live her life because of her skin color. Her life potentially cut short because of the melanin in her skin. It may not apply to you, or you may not care to think that everything is being made about race. But in my world, the world of my friends, my brothers, and my sisters, it is. But we can change this if we want to. If people would just stop being so ignorant about what's going on in our world and not be afraid to talk about uncomfortable topics such as race, then progress could be made. This would be easier if society wouldn't censor so much of what's going on and talk about nonsense to take our minds off of what is actually happening. It is okay to put your input on such topics as long as you are not downplaying or telling people of color that what they feel is wrong. If you're trying to pose the question, don't all lives matter, maybe you should take into consideration that not all lives are being heavily persecuted right now. I speak on these topics for people like Tamir Rice, for people like Eric Garner, and for people like Mike Brown who did not get a chance. I want a chance at life, but it's hard when to society and to this country, my life does not matter.